So I want to go over the basics of bond accounting because I think I lay it out better than the PowerPoint, and I think I lay it out. Um, it's just simpler. I think it lays it out in a way that you can just print out one cheat sheet and have it for reference. So I will make this available online. So bonds sold at face value or 100%, they are the simplest. They are sold for exactly what you were asking for. $1,000 bond, they gave you $1,000. Under bonds that are sold at face value, the market interest rate is equal to the bond interest rate. So anywhere out in the bond market right now, you can get 5%, and my bond's selling for 5%. So it is equal. They're going to give me $1,000 for my bond that I'm selling. My $1,000 bond is going to get me $1,000. Simple. So when I sell that bond, I'm going to get cash of $1,000 that I'm going to debit, and I'm going to create a liability of bonds payable for, and I'm going to mark it as a credit because I now owe that. Whoops. Then as this bond goes along, so it's a 5% bond every year, I'm going to say it's an annual bond, I'm going to pay 5% on that. So 5% of $1,000, I'm going to charge to interest expense, $50, 5% on 1,000, and I'm going to pay it out of cash, so I'm going to credit cash. So every year I'm going to make that entry. Then at the end of the 4 years, why isn't this not working? There we go. I am going to pay that bond off. So my original entry, let's make this a little smaller. So yeah, that does not work the way I want it to. That's trying to hide it. Okay, there you can see it. So this was the original entry up here. Cash to bonds payable. Then when I retire or pay off the bond, I do the opposite. I credit bonds payable and I debit bonds payable and I credit cash. That wipes it out. Wipes out the liability. I paid it off. Okay, so let's go over the other ones. So that's the easy one. The ones that are a little more, they're not more difficult, they're just different. So let's go under bonds sold at a discount or 95% of the value. So sold at 95, sold at 95% can be stated both ways. This is a situation where the market interest rate is higher than the bond interest rate. So everybody else's bonds are selling for 6% interest. Mine is only 5%, so mine isn't as valuable. So somebody comes in and says, okay, well, I'll buy your $1,000 bond, but I'm not going to give you $1,000 for it. I'll give you $950, which is 95% of 1,000. That's where we get that 95 from. So they're going to give me cash for $950, and the discount on the bond is going to be the difference. So in this case, it would be, I would get cash of $950, and then the difference between what my bond was of $1,000 and that discount is going to be $50. So I'd get cash of $950, the discount would be $50, and the bonds payable, I still owe $1,000. I just had to sell it for less than what the loan was to get somebody to buy it. So that is a little different. And so all of a sudden we have this line here that we've never had before that we've got to deal with. So what do we deal with it? We have a discount, which is basically a loss. And because we have a life of a bond that is usually multiple years in length, we need to spread that loss or that discount out over the life of the bond. So how do we do that? Well, when we go down to the next step, we are paying our interest for the bond. So this bond, I think we said we were paying like 5% interest on it. So when we go each year to pay the interest expense, we're also going to charge out the discount on the bonds payable. So we have a bonds payable here of a debit, and we're going to stretch it out and make it go away over the life of it. So if we had a $50 discount here, and this is a 5-year bond, we're going to stretch it out and we're going to expense out $10 every year until it's gone. So the discount on the bonds payable is going to be $10. The cash, if it's a 5% interest, it's going to be $50. Actually, it would be, let me think this out. So we would have, let's just put in real numbers. We would have 10. And then the cash that we're going to pay is 50 for the 5% bond. So the interest expense is going to be 60. So it's kind of weird. So think about it for a minute. We are taking this, let's just fill in numbers just to make it a little easier to imagine. $950, $50 was for a $1,000 bond. Okay, so we're going to expense this out over the 5-year life. Okay, so it's a 5-year bond. So the first year we're going to take $10. And the cash for the interest makes complete sense. The interest is 5%, so we're going to pay $50. So the interest expense is going to be the discount, because it's kind of weird how it adds to the interest level, but it technically does. It reduces it increases what we had to pay to get the loan. We had to take a loss to be able to pay the loan. So let me skip to the next section. This is how a lot of times the books do it. They combine it. Oops, good grief. Just leave my mouse alone. All right, I'm going to show you the way I would lay it out, and it's the same solution. It's laid out differently. So the interest expense, let's just look at that by itself. So the interest is a 5%. I'm going to pay it annually. It's $50. Super simple. Then the discount on bonds payable, I'm going to put it's $10, and I'm going to put it to interest expense. So as you can see, all they did for this one is they combined these two and made it 60 and then put cash and discounts payable. I think it's much easier to see it when it's my version, where it's not necessarily condensed, but it's easier to understand. So the discount on bonds payable, it gets cashed, or it gets expensed out through the interest expense. That's what you need to really know. Again, I think this cheat sheet helps, and I think it helps way better than the way the textbooks sometimes lay it out. I think they lay it out thinking that, well, I'll just show you in the littlest lines possible instead of just expanding it out so you can see all the details. And then the bonds payable, when the bond is over with, when it's time to retire the bond, it's bonds payable and cash. That is actually the same under any method. It looks the same. So we talked about bonds at a discount. We talked about bonds at face value. Let's go over bonds sold at a premium. So bonds sold at a premium are, I have a bond for 6% interest and everybody else is selling bonds for 5%. So everybody wants mine. So they're going to overpay me for my bond. So this one, we have a bond selling at 110%. So I'm going to get $1,100 for that bond. And the premium is $100 and the bonds payable is $1,000. So I took out, or somebody's going to give me a loan for $1,000 and they're going to give me $100 extra just to take out that loan. So then the journal entry looks, we still have to take care of this premium. We have to, in this case, it's a gain. It's not a loss like a discount. This is a gain. So the loss on a discount, it added to our interest expense. It made the cost of the loan higher. A premium does the opposite. It makes the interest on our loan actually go down. So I'm going to bounce right down to my version versus the text version. And I noticed a spelling error. It drives me nuts. I don't know why I don't notice them when I do them. So we have this bond, what did I say, 6% that we were paying? So the interest expense, 6% on $1,000, we're going to pay. My lines aren't even messed up. So it should be $60 debited, $60 paid, and then premium on the bonds payable. So we're going to take this, and let's do it over 5 years. So we're going to take this gain, and we're going to break it up over 5 years. So each year, we're going to divide it out to $20 this year we're going to deduct, and $20 this year we're going to deduct. So it's going to go premium on bonds payable, interest expense. You notice over here we're debiting interest expense, we're increasing it. Over here the premium lowers the interest expense. So if we were to put those both into here, we'd have interest expense of 60, interest expense of 20, it would be 40, premium on the bonds payable would be 20, and then we'd have cash of 60. So it's just, I think this is more confusing trying to do it all together. I think it's easier to break it apart. But just a couple things to remember. When you take a loss, it increases your interest expense. It increases the amount to take the loan. When you sell it at a premium, your premium actually lowers your interest rate. So, and then when the entry to retire the bond or pay it off is simply bonds payable in cash. Looks the same across all three types of payments, all three methods of how you bought the bonds.